Good morning. I would like to thank the UN Global Compact for the opportunity to speak to all of you here. It is an honor to be here alongside many distinguished leaders to discuss a topic that is a top priority for Panama and the international community. Panama is one of the most biodiverse countries in the world, and we clearly understand that the success of our economy and the well-being of our population will depend on the preservation of the environment. Our approach to investment in conservation and sustainability is grounded in an understanding that these areas hold enormous potential to benefit both our economy and our broader society, and it is why we prioritize promoting initiatives for the conservation and protection of our environmental commons. This is the heritage of humanity. We need business action now and deep transformations to meet our sustainable development goals. Securing the global environmental commons requires conserving and sustainably managing our global shared resources and ecosystem, as well as their shared vulnerabilities and risk. The environment doesn't recognize borders, so it is our communal responsibility to take proactive measures. In Panama, we're committed to doing our part and seek to be a leader in environmental diplomacy and recognize the reality that nations and sectors must work together in the face of global threats. Panama is blessed with a rich and diverse ecosystem and is only one of 3 carbon-negative countries in the world, meaning that our forests absorb more carbon than our country emits. We're also surrounded by some of the most beautiful oceans in the world, which serves as another essential resource to us. In June 2021, Panama became the first country to achieve 30% of its marine resources, achieving Blue Leader status and protecting 30% of its land and sea territory 9 years ahead of the 2030 deadline. Our oceans connect us, and we share the responsibility for protecting them with others, and solutions must be approached in tandem with our regional partners. Panama has worked with our neighbors, Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, to expand the Eastern Tropical Pacific Marine Corridor, creating the largest protected marine corridor in the world. By working together, we magnify our impact and we multiply the benefits for our countries and natural habitats. Preservation alone is not enough. One of the most prevalent threats to our ocean and our global environment commons is plastic pollution. Humans are responsible for 80% of the pollutants present in our marine environment, and plastics represent 85% of total marine litter, significantly deteriorating oceanic health. This has become the new tragedy of the commons, as the international community struggles to take collective action to protect our marine resources. Public and private leaders start using their platforms to catalyze interdependent and cohesive responses. Accountability is also critical, as large companies hold much of the responsibility for plastic pollutants. Now more than ever, we need the business community leadership and investment to protect our oceans and waterways for the future generations and become part of the solution to fix the crisis. And fixing this problem will require systemic changes to current business practices, and as public servants, we should support them in this endeavor. In Panama, we have implemented legislation to reduce single-use plastics with the understanding that these individual changes will have a compounding effect for years to come. By daring to act now, we can ensure that our policies to promote economic growth are also serving to benefit and protect our natural resources. The tourism sector is another prime example of the need for bold climate action. Many of our Caribbean neighbors sustain their economies from activities derived from the ocean, such as beachfront, resort, and other marine-related activities. By promoting sustainable tourism, we can not only preserve this vital sector, but we can also create new opportunities for economic growth and the development of a regional blue and green economy. Moving on to the energy sector, another industry in need of sustainability measures, Panama's energy transition agenda is a bold plan aimed at moving our economy away from fossil fuels and includes commitments to drawing at least 70% of our country's energy from renewable resources. Our energy transition plan was developed as a strategic long-term roadmap for diversifying the energy sector, advancing energy access, energy efficiency, and energy security with the goal of decarbonizing the energy system in its entirety. Furthermore, Panama is committed to becoming the leader of inclusive and just energy transitions, serving as an example to our regional partners on why it is crucial of the establishment of any energy transition agenda. Additionally, Panama is uniquely situated as a global hub, particularly for marine transport. Seems only natural then that our country also has to become a hub of the energy transition. Panama hopes to become the bridge that brings people and resources together to not only embrace clean energy, but also to ensure that the energy transition leaves no one behind. Our commitment to this message remains stronger than ever. Lastly, engaging the private sector is key in driving sustainable environmental progress. Tackling climate change and protecting our global environment is an economic imperative, in addition to a major business opportunity. This is a big part of the reason why we're prioritizing public-private partnerships and participation. Panama's public sector has instituted the initiatives and incentives necessary to foster the production of renewable energy, while we still ensure the equitable creation of jobs and protecting our natural resources. Already, we have seen these policies bear fruit, as emissions in Panama's energy sector are projected to decline by the 2030. Across Panama, companies are stepping up to do their part to build more sustainable and resilient future for all. So again, I would like to thank the UN Global Compact for the opportunity to be here with all of you. It has been my pleasure to highlight the importance of multi-stakeholder collaboration and explore the private sector's role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals.
Monsieur le secrétaire général de la Chambre internationale de commerce, cher Monsieur Danton, Monsieur l'envoyé spécial du secrétaire général des Nations Unies pour les affaires économiques et sociales, cher Monsieur Hanif, Madame la directrice exécutive du Pacte mondial des Nations Unies, chère Madame Ojambo, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, je voudrais tout d'abord vous remercier pour votre invitation à intervenir lors du Business Forum consacré aux objectifs du développement durable. Dans le cadre de l'ODD 12, l'objectif du développement durable visant à favoriser la consommation et la production responsable, la France encourage la transformation des modèles économiques des grands groupes pour qu'ils soient à la fois plus durables et plus responsables. Le président Macron a engagé une politique volontariste sur la responsabilité sociale des entreprises en soutenant l'action du Pacte mondial des Nations Unies. Ce qui est vrai à l'échelle de la France l'est à l'échelle de l'européenne, où nous promouvons l'adoption de modes de consommation et de production durables à travers notamment la mise en œuvre du paquet économie circulaire et de la stratégie plastique. La protection de notre biodiversité, de l'océan, des ressources aquatiques dans le cadre d'une gestion durable des ressources naturelles est un enjeu mondial et un enjeu majeur. C'est la raison pour laquelle la France s'engage en lien avec les entreprises, notamment par sa politique d'achat public, à favoriser les initiatives les plus vertueuses, en particulier au travers de sa stratégie nationale de lutte contre la déforestation. Notre pays poursuit d'ailleurs une action diplomatique très forte en faveur des océans. Nous avons ainsi accueilli en février 2022 la conférence One Ocean Summit, qui a contribué à remobiliser la communauté internationale sur ce sujet. Ces initiatives diplomatiques menées de concert avec le programme des Nations Unies pour l'environnement et menées de concert avec de nombreux autres pays, ont en particulier permis l'élaboration d'un texte qui limite drastiquement la dissémination des déchets plastiques dans les océans. Je voudrais mettre en exergue les travaux que le ministère pilote actuellement en faveur de la sobriété, afin de mieux partager les ressources, l'énergie, l'eau, la disponibilité des terres, en priorisant l'animation de groupes de travail multi-acteurs centrés sur la sobriété énergétique, donnant une large place aux entreprises. Je ne saurais conclure sans me féliciter de l'extrême foisonnement d'initiatives volontaires d'entreprises privées en matière de protection de l'environnement et de gestion durable des ressources naturelles. Quelles que soient les formes d'action, quelles que soient les appellations qui sont choisies, toutes ces initiatives que nous avons vocation à encourager et à faire connaître concourent à la protection durable de notre planète. Je vous remercie pour votre attention et je vous souhaite une très belle session de travail.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nancy Shackle, and I am a member of the independent group of scientists working on the Global Sustainable Development Report for 2023. It is my great honor to address you today at the 7th Annual SDG Business Forum, such a prestigious event which I know will help move the world forward. Today, I'd like to speak on the business and global environmental commons. For 35 years, I have worked as a research scientist on the ecology of forest, lakes, birds, but mostly oceans. Now, I work at the Bedford Institute of Oceanography on the east coast of Canada, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq First Nations. Oddly, my career path spans the changing perspective of the link between nature and economy. We used to think that resources were unlimited. In fact, I started my career at the same time as an economic collapse of our largest fishery here on the East Coast. In 1992, the largest fishery across North Atlantic collapsed due to overfishing, putting our coastal communities out of work. Overnight, 30,000 people lost their jobs. More lost theirs later. The fishermen, who weren't allowed to go out to fish, went to the wharf anyways to stand there early in the morning to discuss how to fix the situation. It became clear to so many throughout Atlantic Canada that the economy and indeed our entire culture depends on the environment. That was over 30 years ago, and while that main fishery never recovered, we developed other fisheries over time. This time with industry heavily invested in the sustainability of those other stocks. In our region, we have industry who are involved in the monitoring and assessment and ultimately the longevity of our fisheries. They're very valuable at this time, and we would like to keep it that way, both a healthy ocean and a functioning economy. While we're not perfect, not across all fisheries, not by a long shot, we have made progress, especially in the recognition that society ultimately depends on the environment. And it's in this session here that we'll explore how business can help to sustain the global environmental commons. From the perspective of the independent group of scientists, we note and acknowledge the important role that business plays in sustainability. Two key points have surfaced regarding global environmental commons, and the first is that most economic accounting systems severely undervalue natural capital, both our ecosystem goods and services. There is sufficient room for broader use of environmental accounting and natural capital valuation across any of the monitoring frameworks of global environmental commons. The second point is investing in technologies to improve monitoring of global environmental commons, as well as accessibility to open data, can foster analyses to accelerate pathways for sustainable decision-making. On the first point, evaluation of nature has always been controversial. It still is controversial, but we have seen the effects of not including the cost of ecosystem goods and services in that equation, and that has cost future livelihoods. There's much research over the last 50 years to start to include nature and account for sustainability in the economic evaluation of any industry. On the second point, investments in sustainability through sciences, technology, and innovation include how we monitor and assess and set targets for the health of our global environmental commons. Part of the tragedy of the commons happens when we can't measure what's happening, even if targets exist. If we can't see it, we don't know it until it's too late. There have been many initiatives to create a nature-positive future. One of those, for example, is the Global Commons Alliance, who have created initial guidance for business using science-based targets for nature. Such frameworks may be discussed today, and I look forward to that. In closing, I would like to thank you very much for this opportunity, and I look forward to watching the session remotely, of course. Thank you.
Yes, unfortunately, we're all remote these days. Let's hope that very soon, next year, we'll be back in person. But at least it means we get a much wider participation from around the world, which is a good thing. So let's turn now to our panel after hearing from Dr. Nancy Shackle. Thank you for your remarks. And the first panel is going to be looking at the role of the business community to protect global environmental commons. And I'm going to hand over to Kellyanne Naylor, who's Director of Water, Sanitation, Hygiene and Climate, Environment, Energy and Disaster and Risk Reduction Program Group at UNICEF. That's quite a mouthful. But anyway, over to you, Kellyanne.
Jillian, distinguished guests, I'd like to welcome you to today's panel discussion. It's absolutely a pleasure to moderate this session here, also in my capacity as Vice Chair of UN Water. And for those of you who've never heard of UN Water, it's the coordination mechanism in the UN system for water and sanitation. As you know, there's no one single agency that specializes on water. Indeed, water runs through the work of the United Nations. I would like to also thank the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UN Compact, and the International Chamber of Commerce for hosting this year's SDG Business Forum. As Jillian said, this session is going to shine a spotlight on scalable business solutions and effective partnerships in such areas as water, biodiversity, and energy, highlighting the most effective way for humanity to manage our collective impact on the global environment commons. And this can be through the sustainable management of natural resources in our day-to-day operations. We are very fortunate to have a distinguished panel today who you see here on the screen, representing a diverse set of companies that are leading and demonstrating solutions in practice across their respective industries. Distinguished guests, water is cross-cutting, and it impacts so many of our common development priorities. And it is truly through this multi-stakeholder collaboration and international cooperation that we will make progress. And I think, as we heard in the opening remarks, we are at a situation where we must quadruple the current rates of progress to meet the global targets for universal access to safely managed drinking water and sanitation by 2030. And with this opportunity, looking ahead to 2030, it is our moral responsibility to capitalize on the opportunities to make progress, both in this year and especially next year. Those of you who are here, who follow the water sector, might know that in 2023, we are having what's called the Year of Water Ambition. We will gather in New York in March 2023 for the first dedicated UN Conference on Water in a Generation, the UN 2023 Water Conference. And this conference is going to be an opportunity to galvanize our commitments around what's called the Water Action Agenda. And I encourage all of you to learn more about this opportunity to join a global movement for positive water action. We will only be successful, though, of course, if we have the private sector on board. And your engagement over these next coming up 6 months, the time is flying, leading up to the conference, will be able to make this a truly historical moment for water. But without further delay, let's get to our panelists today. And I want to first start off giving the floor to Ms. Elam Sritaba. She is the Chief of Sustainability Officer of Asia Pulp and Paper. APP is one of the leading forestry, pulp, and paper companies globally. Ms. Sritaba has over 20 years of experience across finance, forestry, as well as supply chain and business process management and business strategy. Ms. Sritaba, welcome to our panel today. APP has demonstrated a commitment to incorporating sustainability into its operations. And in particular, water stewardship has been a particular focus of the company's sustainability strategy. We've heard that APP has endorsed the UN Global Compact CEO water mandate and also joined support for the UNICEF WASH program. I'd like to hear from you today about how participating in these global partnerships has helped to advance your sustainability goals. Ms. Sritaba, over to you. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Kellyanne. Good morning and good day for everyone around the world. So thank you for the question. I think like what we heard, that water is really one of the great important resources for our industry and of course for the all the society and the planet. And we know that more than 10%. People in Indonesia still need access for the clean water, and 51 million still have no adequate sanitation facilities. And this is one of the background that APP as one of the biggest pulp and paper industry in Indonesia know and have a responsibility how we can do more to our society. So many communities across in our country, as an archipelago country, face some complication from floods and droughts. And also, we are deeply committed on how we can use water as one of the sustainable resources as well. So water is a key for the production of the pulp and paper. And without water, of course, our mills will not be able to operate. So this is one of our best interests, how we can protect local water resources, minimize consumption, and ensure our effluent meets rigorous environment standard. So reduce water intensity by nearly 30% based on our 2018 targets, 3 times more than our initial goals. So this is one of the achievements that we make sure that our industry production can use water with sustainable way, and also make sure that we reduce the COD and BOD effluent by 19% and 24%. We also recycle and reuse 30% of water in our production process. In community also, we partner with the many Indonesian and international partners to deliver some projects that address Indonesia twin water challenges, having too much of it and have a little, too little. Partner with the Indonesian government and others local alliances to protect mangroves, especially in and around the Jakarta and South Sumatra, which encompasses our operational landscape. Many benefits to protecting mangroves, including protection from erosion and flooding and improving water quality as well, and how we also provide something like a livelihood, a sustainable livelihood for the communities who's living surrounding our public supplier concession. And as a chair of the Indonesian Water Mandate under Indonesia Global Compact Network, we also deliver some project in some priority village in Pari Island, Berbak Sembilang National Park, which is we think that future will expand to other partner also in other island, in objective to improve water quality with water treatment machine, establishing better water storage infrastructure, improving waste management, and providing sanitation training. So another project under IGCN, we also building of biopores, reinforced cycling decal holes in the ground. So design manage overflow of water by improving soil absorption. So this is we encouraging all the members under IGCN to also nearly to achieve the nearly 1 million biopores have been deployed in vulnerable landscape around Jakarta. So Yes, I think in addition this, we are also steering the UN Global Compact Tulu into mitigating other water challenges, both within the business and the landscape, which involve the community and conservation. I think this is really support our sustainability on how we can make sure that water as one of our resources can also sustain within our production, and also in the same time we also can protect this water and provide access to our communities surrounding the operation. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. David, thank you so much for sharing this example. And I think we've really heard from you how you're addressing water issues both in your direct business practice with pulp and paper, protecting local resources. You've shared some very specific targets that you're setting, but also how you're working with local communities and partners to link environment, livelihoods, and access to safe water and sanitation. So thank you so much for kind of showing how all those pieces are fitting together for your company. Now we're going to move to our next speaker, and it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Martin Powell, the Global Head of Urban Development in Siemens. Mr. Powell, you're the Head of Sustainability and Environmental Initiatives for Siemens Financial Services, and in this you work with businesses, states, and cities to support them in achieving environmental, social, and economic goals. And I hear you've been heavily involved in building business strategies and developing pathways for organizations to achieve environmental, social, and governance improvements, as well as roles in energy purchasing and green funds. So coming now, Mr. Powell, Siemens has taken several other steps to manage its environmental impact, including endorsing the UN Global Compact CEO water mandate. From your perspective, what brought Siemens to sign on to this initiative, and how does the company see its role in water stewardship? Over to you.
Great, thank you very much. Well, firstly, I'd say that the CEO and also our Chief Sustainability Officer continually embrace all aspects of sustainability throughout the organization. We became a signatory back in 2008 with two main objectives. The first, obviously, to manage water at our own facilities, which we have complete control over. But perhaps more importantly, to provide solutions that help others to handle water and wastewater. And actually, our sustainability report's very transparent on where and how we do that. As it comes to strategies, I would say minimizing the local impact of water consumption is the key. Accounting for water scarcity, obviously pollution, flooding, which is extremely topical at the moment, and thinking about inherent design of resilient water systems is absolutely key. And I'll just make two quick comments about buildings, because I think we need to start thinking a little bit differently. We have to really optimize and minimize water use in our new buildings, new construction. We build to the very highest LEED standards in our new facilities, and this addresses the water issue extremely well. But I'd just like to mention, I've been talking about this for years, but the UK Code for Sustainable Homes says that we should, on a domestic use, be consuming around 80 litres per person per day. I'm right here in New York, in the US. The US consumes around 280 litres per person per day. Europe, 220 litres. South America, 180 litres. Africa, 120 litres. So nobody is anywhere close to the 80 litres per person per day. So it's nice to push those kind of numbers out to allow us all to have a little think about how we can, make that big jump to minimize the amount of water you consume. And it is possible. There are facilities out there that have got that water use down. So we should really be showcasing those and showing others how that can be done. Thanks.
Martin, thank you so much for sharing those examples, and I think really kind of putting things into perspective about, I think, both the risks of having too little water or the risks of having too much water. But also, I think what I really took away from what you're saying is not just focusing on this as a side issue, but really looking at how this is integrated into water management issues are also integrated into cross-cutting areas like business construction and setting concrete targets. So thank you so much for that. And for those of us in New York, it certainly gives us some food for thought or water for our drinking here. Great. Thank you so much. And now we're going to move to our third panelist. And I would like to welcome Ms. Amita Chowdhury, who is from the group head of sustainability at AIA. AIA is the largest Pan-Asian life and health insurance group. Ms. Chowdhury, you are responsible for overseeing the environmental, social, and governance strategy, goals, and plans, and driving organization-wide efforts to embed ESG into business operations and culture. I understand prior to AIA, Amita, you spent 13 years at Unilever as head of sustainable business for Southeast Asia and Australasia, and that you were also named a leading woman in sustainability by the World Business Council of Sustainable Development in 2018. So Ms. Chowdhury, thank you so much for joining us today. And you know, how material is climate action to AIA? This is a different industry that we usually hear from. So can you tell us a little bit about your main actions, how you see the regulatory landscape on climate in Asia, and what you really see are the opportunities and gaps? Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this really critical forum on business action to protect global environmental commons. So, you know, as you said, AIA is the largest Pan-Asian life and health insurer, and we have a presence in 18 markets across Asia. We have a 100-year-old history. And we have an operating philosophy of doing the right thing in the right way with the right people so that the right results will come. We also are a health and life insurer. And so we have an inspiring purpose to help people live healthier, longer, better lives. You mentioned climate. It's a highly material issue for us. We are, as it is for the world. But given that we are in Asia, this is the region that contributes to more than half of greenhouse gas emissions. There's 80% dependence here on fossil fuels. This is where the climate change battle is going to be won or lost. This is a highly material issue for us across the three roles that we play. We are an insurer. We're also an investor because we pool the premiums from our customers and then ensure that we sort of invest that making sure that there is sustainable returns for our policyholders over the long term, and and we are also a responsible business. So climate is an issue that impacts us as a business, both from risk and opportunity perspective. It's obviously very important to our stakeholders, and it's an area where we can have an outsized impact, given our deep roots in Asia, a legacy of trust. Built over several years with millions of people as an insurer. We have scaled 23,000 employees and hundreds and thousands of agents and bank partners. And with the influence that we have an investment book of about $250 billion at the end of December 2021, majority of that which is invested in the region. So an opportunity for us to make a significant impact to build a sustainable and healthier Asia. And so it's a very material, and I'll just quickly speak to some of the actions that we're taking. So our purpose is to build healthier, longer, better lives for millions of people, and to achieve that through contributing to a healthy planet and healthy communities. As an insurer, we look at assessing climate risk impacts on morbidity and mortality. So planetary health and human health are interrelated. And, we already see the effects of climate change, but by 2050, there's going to be significant increase in the global temperatures, lethal heat waves, extreme precipitation, heat-related mortality and morbidity that will affect a life and health insurer like AIA. So we build that into the climate models and plan for it in the midterm. Also reporting on the task force on climate-related financial disclosure framework. So that's one action, assessment of climate risk for our business. As an insurer, we've also committed early this year to engage 1 billion people by 2030 to help them live healthier, longer, better lives. And this AI 1 billion commitment underscores AI's commitment to engage, educate, and inspire communities across Asia to not only improve their physical and mental wellness, but also environmental wellness while championing financial inclusion. So that's another important step that we're taking to address climate action, to promote awareness and education. We have worked on research partnered with the United Nations Environment Programme on the first ESG underwriting guide for global life and health, of which climate is obviously a material issue. We've done research to summarize the evidence in scientific literature linking human health and environment, because health and environment at the intersection of that is extremely important for us to deliver on the purpose that I just shared with you. And this report provides guidance on what individuals can do and what AI is doing. On the investor side, for the organization, we've made a commitment to net zero by 2050. We've signed up to the science-based targets. In one of the most significant actions from our side has been, as of October 2021, AI has completely divested its directly managed listed equity and fixed income exposure to coal mining and coal-fired power businesses. So that's a key action, integration of ESG into our investment scorecard that is getting rolled out to the investee company, of which climate is a key part, is another important action, and portfolio inclusions, ESG, bonds, green bonds, investments in renewable energy as an investor is a key part of our overall strategy. In addition, just like our fellow panelists mentioned, we are also members of different alliances or partnerships. Climate Action 100 Plus, Asia Investor Group for Climate Change, report on CDP, have been a launch partner to Cathay Pacific Sustainable Aviation Fuel Program, and so on. So a number of different actions that we're taking, and by being deeply rooted in Asia with the localized operating model and leadership, with the detailed knowledge of realities on the ground, along with partnerships, we're playing an important role to address climate change in this region. You spoke about the Asia regulation. As I said, Asia is on the front line of the climate crisis, and we see that, the floods in Pakistan or Southeast Asia, drought in China impacting food security, heat waves across the region. And so we really need regulation to facilitate action on climate, to address the challenges and capture the opportunities from climate action. And I have to say that regulators in Asia are stepping up. Whether it is building resilience for climate risk, so mandating task force on climate-related financial disclosures across the different markets, Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, New Zealand, Taiwan, or, TCFD is a part of ISSB, International Sustainability Standards Board, which when the standard is finalized will get rolled out to multiple jurisdictions. So that will be a key part of the regulation. Secondly, net zero commitments. Before last year...
Amita, sorry, we're just running a little low on time. So okay. If you could wrap up. Sorry, I know time is always too short.
Yeah. Thank you. Just net zero commitments, a building of sustainable finance ecosystem. And so a lot of regulators are stepping up in a big way that will give us tailwind to drive climate action. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Chaudhary. And I think we could stay here all day with this panel, because these are just such interesting examples. I think we've seen, while this is a global issue, it's a local issue, but also the ways that we're able to integrate business, environment, and also so many human development and well-being. I want to do a speed round now. I know we just have 5 minutes left in the session, but I'd really like like to hear one last time from our speakers. Really taking the opportunity. I'm here in New York. If you could look down the street, you would see the UN General Assembly building. And we'd really like to hear from you one policy recommendation that you would have to us here, to governments. What do you think that governments should prioritize to unleash the power of business action to truly protect global environmental commons? In your view, what should it be? And maybe we'll go back to our original order, starting with Ms. Sritaba, and then to Mr. Powell, and then rounding up with Ms. Chaudhry. So just briefly, what would that policy recommendation be? Over to you, Ms. Sritaba.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. So if you ask me what kind of policy that we will recommend as a private sector right now, we know that I think most of the private sector right now is showing the commitment to protect the forest and doing a lot of things in terms of communities' livelihood. And I think still have something that we can do wider than what we have been done now, together with our government. As I'm coming from the Indonesia country, I know that we know that a lot of national park in Indonesia, and we also know the opportunity about the ecotourism in this era. And in the same time, also I think that private sector also can bring benefit on how we can collaborate with the government to manage this ecotourism together with maybe local CSO and other experts. And I think this is something that policy can, I can say, if UN can helping to unlock, especially in Indonesia, on how can private sector, local CSO, and other experts in terms of conservation, and how we can contribute to protect this nature and bringing more awareness, especially to the wider stakeholders, on how this national park can be also become ecotourism and bring a wider stakeholder awareness that basically working together can helping everyone reach this national park, and also in the same time educate and a wider stakeholder to having protection in collaboration. So that's maybe my feedback in terms of policy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Powell, over to you.
Yeah, great. I mean, the world is run by small and medium enterprises, and many of them lack the capacity and the capital to really decarbonize their operations. And a lot of organizations, including ours, have a huge responsibility to those supply chains, to support them, not just in responsible business practice, but to really decarbonize. We launched a $100 million Kickstarter capital program to support that, and we've built some tools, not for people to use, but actually to give away, so that we can really help scale up investment into that space, and really help people not just baseline their emissions, but give them the clues to actually reduce emissions. And I think that's going to be really key. I think there's a really great role in government to facilitate that. We encourage our friends in the finance institutions to put up similar amounts of capital. We're working with all sorts of organizations, state governments and green banks, to share these tool sets. And I think there's definitely a role to increase the level of collaboration. I mean, we really are all in this together.
Thank you so much, Mr. Powell. And Ms. Chaudhry, briefly, what is your thought on a policy recommendation? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I think, Kelly, to institutionalize change, I think we've got our role models and pioneers, but if we want to really institutionalize this, appropriate coherence and speed on regulation with regards to incentives and disincentives for ensuring that we accelerate the work on mitigating and adapting to climate change, but doing it in a way that we ensure social inclusion and social impact. So it's not just environmental commons, it's environmental and social commons that we're looking at together. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much to our panelists for these policy recommendations. I think you have really outlined some transformative pathways about how different stakeholders can be working together towards these common goals and targets that we've set with the Sustainable Development Goals and across other UN conventions and treaties. I think we will very much, and I want to challenge and ask our leaders here in the panel, we hope you'll continue and our participants here to be part of the thought leaders that will help bring these private sector solutions to the table, both as part of the COP as well as part of the UN 2023 Water Conference. This is exactly the type of conversation that we want to be having. We need ambition, we need vision, and most importantly, we need to be able to act together with all the assets, the resources, the expertise to be able to truly achieve a climate resilient and sustainable future for everyone in this generation as well as in those to come. So thank you so much. And Gillian, I think handing back over to you.